This is HBR News number 466. Britain burns. J.K. Rowling says men's rights are the reason for trans athletes, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you may be. My name is Brian, and this is HBR News, where we discuss all of the crazy, wild, revelations-oriented events leading up to something, and we try to make sense of it in this crazy world. I don't know. I just sort of ad-lib that. I know that I have another thing that I do. I'm just not doing it today. I don't know. I'm feeling a little loopy. It's the wine. All right. Anyway, we have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comments section. I am, of course, joined by Mike, that's Dr. Randermercam, and Hannah Wallen. So, we will all have our 2 cents or $200 in funny money to give as far as part of commentary for today's stories. On this week's news show, we're going to be talking about things going on in Britain that I am waiting with bated breath to hear about from Dr. Randermercam, because he is on the ground. He is in the hip of it, the hip deep.
I'm safely in Connecticut at the moment.
Oh, well, yeah,
I'm wondering how much of my country is going to be there when I go back.
That's true. But because of the accent, we're gonna pretend like you're there. Yeah. Maybe. But like, why would he register when you can just go to the southern border and walk on in, and you'll get clothes?
If I call myself Miguel.
Yes, just call yourself Miguel, and then you'll be fine. But anyway, we're going to be discussing news across the pond. The squad, that would be, I don't even know why we call them that, but like these AOC and her friends, they're sort of like the Josie and the Pussycats of communism in our political system. Yeah, exactly. J.K. Rowling makes a crazy claim that men's rights activists are responsible for trans women in women's sports and more. So stick around. Yes. So stick around. It's going to be a good time, and be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So I did a meeting with Allison. We were talking about what to do with our after shows that might be a little bit more enjoyable. So we're going to be like kind of keeping it light for the after shows. We do appear to be tumbling towards the end of something, and I'm just hoping that maybe we can create a whoopee cushion style landing for us so that it's a little bit more bearable and maybe even a little bit funny. So I had this article from The Guardian. So you guys... Oh, they can't hear you? Hold on a second. I think I know why. Yeah. No, I got it. Yeah, you should be fine now. I should have checked your volume before we started. Yeah, you should be fine now. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just want to make sure we fixed it in the beginning of the show, because
yeah, it was just
I'm gonna go off later on.
Yeah, it's just because of the different audio sources, outputs. But I think I have that fixed. All right, but anyway. So we're going to be looking at this article from The Guardian, but we might just end up chit-chatting about other things going on in our culture. But you guys might know that I think last week, the Ryan Reynolds headed film Deadpool and Wolverine, I think that's what it's called, or Deadpool versus Wolverine. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. But it's been doing like the rounds, and it doesn't seem to be making everybody happy, despite it kind of like being very satisfying for actual like film going public folks. Oh, did you?
We went down to the theater and saw it. It's
you can talk about it on the show.
It's a fan service fest, basically. It's all Easter eggs and sly little mentions of stuff,
inside jokes.
It's all very self-indulgent and possibly unnecessary, but at least it's not woke garbage, folks.
Yes, exactly.
It sounds like something I'm gonna want to see.
Take whatever small mercies we can get. There's no woke garbage in it.
And Wesley Snipes.
Yes.
So,
So they
there you
finally
go.
did Gambit. They found. Oh, that's a
Yes.
spoiler. Sorry, but you'll want to see this. They finally did Gambit.
Yeah. Pretty funny. So anyway, with that said, we're gonna look at this guy's article from The Guardian because The Guardian is always good for ridiculous articles. Deadpool's obnoxious gay panic humor is a tiresome schoolyard taunt by Guy Lodge, who looks sufficiently stern and Marm-like in this photograph. So anyway, if you want to join us for that, become a patron, join us, become a badger, do the things. Go to feedthebadger.com/subscribe and start a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all the additional content, which includes lots of exclusive things and like writing groups and gaming groups and people just sort of like shooting the poop. I'm trying to be a little bit cleaner with my language, so shooting the poop in the Discord, and we hope that we'll see you guys there. And plus, if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we've been yeeted from the internet, please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find where all of our content lives. All right, so with all that out of the way, let's get into the stories. I have a short write-up for this. Mike J provided this, and for that we appreciate. So I'll just read this brief and then I'll hand the floor off to you guys. A week has passed since the mass stabbing event in Southport, UK, where a 17-year-old born from Rwandan immigrant parents killed 3 girls under the age of 10 and injured 10 others of varying age and sex. No motive for the attack has officially been given so far, but police are not considering it a terror-related event at this time. In the wake of such an unexplained and tragic happening, the public's anger has boiled over, resulting in protests in well over a dozen cities in the UK. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, I hope I'm saying that correctly, I think it's Keir Stalin, something like that, has vowed a return to order and has cracked down especially hard on right-wing protesters, with over 400 being arrested so far. This stance is somewhat odd given how sympathetic Prime Minister Starmer was to violent protesters during the 2020 George Floyd riots, of which, by the way, the UK should have absolutely nothing to do with, yet here we are. All right, so anyway, with all that said, I hand you the floor.
Should I start?
Yeah, I mean, Hannah, if you don't want to wait, yeah, okay.
I'm going to be going for 20 minutes. So
yeah, go ahead.
I should start by saying, do not attend any of these protests, folks. I have to say that, or Keir Starmer will have me arrested. It's when I was a lad, patriotism was just, a little bit cringe. Nowadays, it's checks notes, illegal. So I'll try and be careful what I say. Let me clarify this first. If at any point you hear me say, these people want us dead, I am, of course, referring to the traitors who run our government and our mass media. They are the ones attacking us. They just happen to be using foreign mercenaries as their weapons. The barbarians wouldn't be a threat if the traitors weren't holding the gates open. And paying the barbarians to go through them. Bear in mind, it would be right-wing people you're fighting if you did. They're proudly patriotic about another country, about another faith. So, if anything, this is the left wing making 2 different right wings fight each other like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Don't fall for it, folks. Eyes on goal. The enemy is within. It goes by many elusive names, but for the sake of argument, we'll call it the left, even though they don't even call themselves that. According to the government and its mouthpiece, the legacy media, as far as they're concerned, we are the center, the sensible center. Everyone we don't like is the far right, and there is no far left. It's never mentioned. It's never brought up. It doesn't exist. Now, I know what you're thinking. POV, you are the far left. And yes, Yeah, that is accurate. That is exactly what you would see from the far left. You would see nothing on the left and everything on the right. Someone could ask you, are there any left-wing parties in British politics that you can vote for? And you'd go, no. No. Not Labour? Nah. Not the Liberal Democrats? Of course not. Not the Greens? Nah, not really. Not Reform? Are you having a laugh? Those guys are Nazis. Ah, okay. They're the only party that doesn't want infinite immigrants forever, and they're the extremists. Interesting. Okay, so zero immigration, right? Legal or illegal, right? Absolute zero immigration ever. That would be far right. Yes? Yes. Okay, so infinite immigration forever would be it's called not being a dick. Okay. This is a conversation you can have with millions of British people, the ones who get all their news from the TV. Do you guys watch any TV recently? It's a hellscape now. It's a Bosch painting. It's a theme park of sick clowns from Upside Down World. It's got big rides. They're all made of lies, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing and that sort of thing. And NPCs can't get enough of it, especially boomer NPCs. If they see it on TV, they believe it. If they didn't see it on TV, it didn't happen. So they don't know about the dinghies. They don't know about the hotels full of migrants or whatever. And they don't know about the grooming gangs because the TV doesn't tell them. The TV only tells them that the British people are racist, sexist war criminals and they should be punished. And that all foreigners are peaceful, noble, perfectly tolerant doctors and engineers who are escaping some kind of atrocity that's probably the British people's fault. Not the British government's fault. Oh, heavens no, we didn't do nothing. It was the peasants. The peasants are the ones who colonized the world. So go get some revenge. Go on, get stuck in. And then people wonder how on earth anyone could get so radicalized that they would slaughter British children. You know, there are a lot of people who migrate to the UK because they like it and they want to be British. They admire the British people and they want to integrate. But then they turn on the TV and they're subjected to 24-hour propaganda about how monstrously racist the British people are. And then they go out and casually slaughter a bunch of us. And then the TV goes, oh no, oh how sad, how could this possibly have happened? Oh no, anyway, the British people are far-right racist thugs and you should all be terrified of them. Oh no, it happened again. Oh, so sad. Nazis, all of them. Oh no, it happened again. They can't not do it. It's the only thing in their playbook. No matter how victimized the British public becomes, all they can do is re-victimize us. If right-wing means having a preference for your own country, for your own people, then what we have in Britain is far left. The government and the media it regulates are extremely far left. So far left that they have no word for oikophobia. So far left that they don't even have a word for left-wing anymore. It's just normal. It started with the universities, it did start with them, but it grew there, and then it crept into the media, and now it's everyone who listens to the media. It's millions of people now. They think this is normal, having this seething, insatiable contempt for their own people, their own culture, and throwing dehumanizing scorn on anyone who does not share in this contempt. Any hint of in-group preference is called far right and it's grounds for a criminal accusation. But an infinite hatred of your own countrymen is not called far left. It's not even called moderate left. It's just normal. Absolute zero normal. It's what's expected of us by default. There was that chilling moment in Keir Starmer's speech when he said, if you target people because of the color of their skin or their faith, that is far right. So targeting someone because they're white is what? Is what? Starmer, I'm the goose meme now. What is it, Starmer? If targeting white people is far right, then why aren't you arresting the people who are doing that? And if targeting white people is the opposite of far right, what's that called? What's it called, Starmer? Please do not concede any ground to this notion that racism is right-wing. It is not. Racism exists all the way across the political spectrum in a big, greasy smear. So DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, all that jazz. It's actually targeting people because of the color of their skin. Clearly racist. But it's left-wing racism, so it looks normal from the far left. Black Lives Matter? Blatantly racist, blatantly Marxist, blatantly left-wing. And in their name, thousands rioted violently during the height of lockdown, no less. And the police kneeled before them. They literally kneeled. The police wouldn't let you leave your house at the time unless you were supporting race Marxism. And then they kneeled for you. And people think this is normal. Because that's how normalized left-wing extremism has become. From the top to the bottom, from the back to the front. And yes, it's ingrained in the police force, down to the paperwork itself. Foreigners and minorities are effectively, if not officially, first-class citizens. They are allowed to be xenophobic, but the British people are not. Oikophobia is not policed whatsoever. It is as normalized as the air we breathe. More so, actually. We have a word for air because we know it exists. Most people have no word for oikophobia. And most of those who do use some kind of euphemism. But it didn't start with the police, and it's not anchored in the police. You may wonder who polices the police. Same thing that polices everyone, the media. What happens when the police use violent force against minorities? Well, we saw it a couple of weeks ago. A police officer in Manchester Airport was filmed kicking a Muslim in the face. Of course, those Muslims were first filmed attacking those police officers, breaking one of their noses and hospitalizing them. But we didn't see that footage on the TV. All we saw was the last few seconds of the interaction. It's like when the little kid fights back after months of bullying, and that brief moment is the only part of the story that you show. Yeah, and you ruin the life of a little kid for exercising some self-preservation for the first and probably only time in his life. And in the process, you embolden the bullies because you're a prick. It's the oldest trick in the book, but it's all the media does. They take an image in 4K and they show you one pixel. And it's either a black one or a white one. This is why our police forces operate in a two-tier system. This is why everyone operates in a two-tier system. Because we're all being held hostage by the media, by their ability to deperson anyone at the drop of a hat. It's sort of the British equivalent of the deep state, but it's even worse. We have a governmentally centralized media network, and we have Ofcom, the Office of Communications, the government body that regulates all broadcast media, and we have its frontline offensive we call the BBC. Every channel on the TV and the radio has to do Ofcom's bidding in order to maintain their license to continue to broadcast their content. But the BBC doesn't even have to be nudged in such a way. They already got the memo ahead of time. The BBC, like Ofcom, is another government body. They lead the way with the state propaganda, and the other channels use them as a reliable source, and they repeat the state propaganda as though it's the truth, because Ofcom tells them to. It's a state monopoly, masquerading as the illusion of choice. And across the conquered territory of Ofcom, the message is clear. Whites bad, non-whites good. British bad, non-British good. Man bad, non-man good. Whatever the fuck that means now. This isn't just two tiers, it's a complex pyramid scheme we call the progressive stack. And you cannot commit any violation upwards through the stack. Even if you're a police officer, if you harm one hair on the head of a foreigner, we, the state media, will make you famous. We will make the whole country hate you. Not only will you lose your job and never be able to work again, you will scarcely be able to leave your house for fear of the angry mobs. And we won't help you. But if you are a foreigner, oh, by all means, you can kill British children in as yet uncapped numbers, Anakin fucking Skywalker style, and we'll tell everyone you're Welsh. We'll find a picture of you as a child who enjoys Doctor Who cosplay, and we'll suddenly get distracted by something else. Meanwhile, the British people will be instructed not to look back in anger, not to do their own research, just to perpetually blame each other for the consequences of policies that we voted against, and to prostrate ourselves endlessly at the feet of the unassailable other. It's one of those schemes where everyone's guilty by the time they've even signed up. Before you're even born, you're obliged to sign your life over to the mob that currently rules over our nation. And as you climb the ladder, you notice how much degeneracy you're allowed to commit now that you've reached that rung. In much the same way, basically everyone at the BBC is a cocaine addict and a nonce. You pick it up at the door on your way in. You get a 3-gram bag and an infant. It's part and parcel. So you do your job, you read the script, you scull all the cocaine, and you fuck the infant like a rotisserie chicken, and you keep working for the BBC for the rest of your natural life. But if at any point you stray away from the script, if at any point you threaten the sacred narrative of the dear Big Brother, they revoke your privacy privileges, they release the files, and now the whole world knows you're a kiddie fiddling cokehead. And you shuffle away and you die in a corner with a face full of drywall and a chicken full of your soft, broken genitalia. It's all rather sad. Where was it? The problem with the police is that the police are policed by the media. So who polices the media? I will leave a pregnant pause for the sake of engagement farming. Are we ready? Yeah, it's no one. Yeah, it's tempting to say us. It's us, the alternative media. We police the media. Yeah, no. The police police us, and the media polices the police. It doesn't wrap around like rock, paper, scissors. We're 2 rungs down. We're 2 rungs below the law that our opponents are above. Yeah, no, only the government has the power to police the media, and they don't. It's what they use to police us. Where do you think politicians get their news? Over the breakfast table in the morning. You'd think they would have their own sort of special sort of government sources, but the BBC is their special government source. They control it. Well, it controls them. It's a robot that they programmed to spew far left propaganda about how evil the right wing is. Then they listen to it as it does its thing, and they go, "Oh my God, the far right, they're so evil. We must do something. What do we do? Let's program the machine to be even more left wing." And then they listen to it and go, "Oh my God, according to the machine, the right wing is taking over even more. Let's crank up the communism again. Oh my God, look what happened." And so on and so on. And that's it. Over and over forever. There is nothing that can happen that they would consider too far left. Nothing. Not even the complete destruction of the nation they're supposed to be serving and protecting. It's what they want. They'll deny it because they're liars and gaslighters, but the purpose of a system is what it does. And you know what? The the armies of foreign mercenaries won't deny it. They want the nation for themselves, and they will say it to your face. And the far left traitors who ushered them in will just watch from the balcony and jack off while Rome burns. I didn't want to make this about the left-right paradigm. I generally find it reductive and unhelpful. But this is how it's being framed by the Prime Minister, through the obvious lens of the far left. He's not even hiding it anymore. He doesn't know how to hide it. And he speaks for the whole institution when he says, fuck you, I don't care about the native British people. Your motives do not matter. So yes, we're going to carry on robbing you and paying foreign mercenaries to kill you. And yes, we will protect them while they do it. And if you complain about it online, we will arrest you. Full stop. End of story. Eat my dick and both balls if you don't like it. Mic drop. And then just like that, another load of riots flare up across the country. And he blames it on Tommy Robinson or whatever. Keir Starmer needs to resign yesterday. I have never seen anything as disgraceful as that speech, with the possible exception of that other speech. He's just flat out saying, we are siding with Islam. No ifs and buts. We're not discussing it. We side with Islam. They get to be right wing. They get to be proud. They get to defend themselves. You do not. You have to be left wing. You have to be good little communist fuck pigs while we steal your country and hand it gift wrapped to a foreign death cult. The craziest thing of all is Muslims don't even want help from the police. They hate the British police. They want the whole thing gutted and replaced with Sharia. If a policeman rushes in to save a Muslim, the Muslim will stab him. That happened for real in Germany, I think it was. And it was just so emblematic of the whole fucking clown show. That's what happens. And the British police will run head first into a Muslim's sword to try and kill a British man. That's how much they hate the British public. They hate us even more than the invading death cult hates us. It's a hell of a love triangle of gang warfare we found ourselves embroiled in every time we leave the fucking house. We've got these two different roving gangs. The police hate us, but they love the Muslims. The Muslims hate the police, and they hate us. And we're just here. We just wanted to play video games and grill, but here we are. Any day now, someone's gonna die. Someone's going to be killed by the roving gangs of armed Muslims to whom Keir Starmer just gave the green light. The fact that it hasn't already happened is nothing short of a miracle. So, never mind resigning. Starmer needs to resign the day before yesterday. He needs to be in prison yesterday. There's a nationwide race war on his watch. And not only did he do nothing to stop it or even attempt to bring peace, he chose a side in the race war. And he solemnly vowed to crush his enemies. It's not the first time the leader of a people has done that, but usually the enemies in question are not the people he's supposed to be leading, because that would be the single most retarded thing any leader has ever done, ever. But here we are, and I don't know what to say other than get the fuck out of my pub, Starmer. But by that I mean, Mr. Prime Minister, it is with great enthusiasm that I politely invite you to get the fuck out of my public service. And to repeat, do not attend any of these protests. I have to say that, or Keir Starmer will arrest me. And with that, message ends. Rule Britannia.
There isn't a whole lot to add to that. But I will say one thing. And I'm not specifically saying anything about any group of people, any demographic, any race, ethnicity, sex, sexuality, blah, blah, blah. All right. Years ago, the United States created a policy for a while that anybody who fled Cuba could stay here if they just got 1 foot on American soil. 1 foot on the beach. Castro promptly emptied out his prisons and his mental wards and put people on rafts and sent them here. End of statement. Mike said everything else that needed to be said.
Yep. Yeah, I got nothing to add to that either. So, he basically covered it, but I knew he would. That's why I didn't worry about having a lot to say on it. I mean, you know, we've already been through the summer of love here in the States, and knowing that, as usual, the thing is never about the thing. So
Nope.
it's always about the
Always about
revolution.
revolution. Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, if you know there's a thing going on and you feel the need to respond directly to the thing, just remember you're wasting your time. It's not about that. But anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments section. We are going to move on to the next story, and yeah, it's you know, it's only uphill from here, I guess. So next up, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other members of the squad are facing a class action lawsuit for allegedly inciting anti-Israel protests at Columbia University. 5 students filing anonymously accuse Ocasio-Cortez, Representatives Jamal Bowman and Ilhan Omar, and various anti-Israel groups of encouraging illegal actions. The lawsuit claims that the Gaza encampment protests, this is like the protests that have been going on in Columbia University, I guess for like ever since the, like, I would say like, I don't want to say like since October 7th, but definitely after that. So the lawsuit claims the Gaza encampment protests were extreme, violated university rules, and involved harassment and bullying of Jewish students. One student recounted being targeted for wearing a yarmulke and being shoved by a protest leader. The protests, which disrupted campus activities and forced classes online, ultimately led Columbia to cancel its graduation ceremony. The lawsuit argues that 36,000 students suffered real damages due to these disruptions. So, Hannah, you're the one who picked this story specifically, though, for the gender angle in this, really. Yeah.
So here's the thing that people don't think about until we say it. And by we, I mean us and our audience, because I've seen our audience talking about this as well with regard to the Summer of Love, the protests in the UK, protests in South America, everywhere, right? Well, you get civil unrest going, and you get 2 groups of people in particular, whether it is Israel and Palestine, whether it is the Hatfields and the McCoys, whether it's left and right, it doesn't matter. It's all the Hatfields and the McCoys, really. You get war, and it might be formal war between countries, or it might be informal war between groups of people, gang fights, protests, whatever you want to call it. It is still fighting, and the majority of the people doing the fighting are men. Men end up getting pressured to get involved in the protests, pressured to do something by the women around them. This injustice has happened. This situation is intolerable. We're not allowing this to happen. We should put a stop to this. And every time they say we, they mean you, because they're not going to do it. Even the few women that do get involved, when they get involved, they do not take the same level of risk as the men that get involved. They get let out of jail. They get sympathy. They get to go into police stations and testify against the men that were involved. They made us do this. We didn't want to. Even though they're the ones that said, we should do something about this. Right? And so you have that aspect of it. And then when the protests happen in your neighborhood, and you're not on either side, you're not one of the protesters, you're one of the homeowners or one of the business owners, it's men who end up having to defend their properties, their families, themselves from rioters. So every aspect of this falls on men. And when women start stirring shit. And they stir shit in such a way that is designed to outrage men and obligate them to do something, when the something that they're advocating for is vigilante violence, one way or another. They are doing evil. They are imposing violence on men who would not otherwise be violent. And then it'll get called male violence. This is why I don't believe in the term male violence. There is no such thing. Because it always traces back to the benefit of women, the comfort of women, the interests of women, the speech of women, the desires of women, the outrage of women. Men get along. Men become diplomatic as they grow up from being boys to men, because they fight when they're little and they learn that that isn't the best way to handle things. Girls don't all learn that, and they grow up when they don't learn that to be bitches, because they think having somebody fight is the best way to handle things. So I don't feel sorry for the squad. I hope they get the shit suit out of them for this. I don't care who was right and wrong in this situation. If what they did and what they said escalated it from verbal conflict, from diplomatic conflict, to violence in the situation, whether it was between individuals or countries or neighborhoods or students on a campus, that one side is on one side of the conversation and the other side of the campus on the other side, I don't care. They undiplomified the situation. I know that's not a word and I don't care. It's what they did. I'm sure you can figure out what it means. That's the wrong way to handle it. That should be the absolute last resort in any situation. And if anybody else did it, they'd be calling them out on it. So there you go. And I'll say, in regard to the previous story, you have the same thing happening. When the thing that is really about the revolution happens, it is always the politeness that women like to enforce that allows it to go too far before anyone decides that something must be done. That has happened in every country. Whether it's people leaving or people coming in, whether they're welcome or not, how they behave, every aspect of it. The politeness, the enforced politeness of tolerance for things that are not just uncomfortable, but that are overstepping of boundaries, that women do in society, is dangerous and should stop. So that's why I wanted this story to be added.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It kind of like relates to things that we've talked about in the past. How when you get like these protest groups, like Antifa, like BLM, various Islamist groups, whatever, and the reporting and discussion around it becomes around the people involved with the groups, and a lot of times those are men. And so it can be easily turned into a conversation or a narrative about men. But a lot of times it's women that are like pulling the levers and, sort of like moving the pieces around. I already talked about at length how with Antifa, a lot of the leadership in Antifa are school teachers who are women, people like Yvette Forlarca and stuff. And they basically get men who are just looking to belong to something to help them in their causes. And those men will happily be, violent, destructive, and so on. But when the cameras are rolling, it's on the men, right? They're like, oh, look at this. So, and men become very useful pawns in these like larger political movements, whether they are activist groups like Antifa or BLM, or if they are just like waiting for, say, a man to be killed in a way that is politically expedient for activist groups, like when a black man is killed in police custody, for example, then they get to say this, they use this man, he becomes a soldier post-mortem for the cause. And the callous treatment of men, just like the idea of seeing them as these disposable tools for political groups and for power hungry groups like the Squad or whatever, this mentality is how this is allowed to be used in this way. And so we have to like be able to make clear like this, you are using the bodies of boys and men to get your way. And this is hard for people to actually accept, because we want to believe that young men are doing everything of their own choice, and there couldn't possibly be somebody like manipulating them or even nurturing or grooming them for this kind of behavior until they act on it. And this is why you could just see it in like the most basic sense in the cycle of violence itself, right? So people will talk about, well, the prisons are mostly full of men, and then they think that's the end of the conversation. This says something about men, but if you look at where those men's childhoods are and what their background is and where they come from, there's a lot of abuse, and it comes from single moms or women in their life or women that they have gotten involved with or whatever. And this is something that is completely left out. I'm not saying it's the whole picture, but it's not even considered part of this conversation. And so the cycle continues, and you could see what the evidence of what I'm talking about with what happened to Erin Pitsey when she opened up a shelter, and then she looked at the way the women treated their children in her shelter, and then realized that the women were often as violent as the men, sometimes more violent, and that it was feeding into this cycle. But see, some people don't care if the cycle repeats, because there is some utility in the cycle repeating. And so they allow it to happen. In fact, they will fight tooth and nail if you try to point out that if you want to break the cycle of violence, you can't look at it through a gendered lens. But they can't have that, because it threatens their power, and it threatens their ability to consistently reach into this resource of abused young male dysfunction that often expresses itself as violence. And even the supposed biggest brain people can't like talk about this stuff. Like, they're not ready. They only ever get halfway there. I used to hear Gad Sad said this, and he was talking he was talking about how single men with no relationship prospects, who are sitting on their thumbs with nothing to do, are a hotbed for, they basically, like, a lot of dangerous activity or behaviors can come out of that. And because these are men who don't, if they don't have a girlfriend, they don't have relationship prospects, they don't have children, and this is all like not access to them, then they will live in the moment and they could become destructive. And I think that's true. And so don't get offended by that, but I do think that it's true when you have a lot of idle hands, that's the saying goes, it can be a problem. But the thing is, it's also true for women. It just expresses itself in another way, and he can't see that. So, it just comes out in different ways. And when men become destructive, it's immediately perceivable, because it's like right there. But when women become destructive, it's slow, and it's harder to get out, and it's over time. It's in the way that they raise their children. It's in the way that they treat the people around them, the relationships, the way that they take advantage of these things, and the way that they use the system itself, the way that they use government. I mean, what is JD Vance when he talks about embittered women that don't have any family prospects being a problem? This is how it could be expressed. Like, in a man, he might get into some violent crime, he might get into theft, he might join a gang, he might get addicted to drugs. But what is it with a woman? She might have a bunch of kids from a bunch of different baby daddies, and get on the government dole, and like use the system, and teach her kids to use the system, and abuse her children, and then those children may go on to be abusive, and we're not supposed to think she's got anything to do with it. So like this is, I think, when people are out of their proper place, or at least like they're not aiming for some proper place, they could become destructive over time. And that's just something we have to understand, is something that is real, and something that interested people who are corrupt in their motives could take advantage of. And part of it is what you encourage, and part of it is what you do not discourage. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on that. But let's move on to the next story if there's nothing else. I did get some super chows, so I'm going to read through them. So we got one from it was yesterday, but it was in reference to last news show. HBR News number 465 Legacy gives us $5. Thank you. And says, when I hear the word legacy in regards to parenthood, I envision the well-being of the parents' children, such as whether the children are going to be able to live well, provide for themselves, and have fewer critical problems, etc. I found nothing wrong with Brian's usage of legacy. The criticism on that word was an autismo prime moment, and now I am done with my autismo prime moment. Autists roll out. Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know if it was the right word to use, but I was specifically talking about that. Like what we leave behind. Like, we want to hope that if we have children, or we have nephews or nieces or whatever, that they are not going to be, that their lives are going to be a bit better than ours were. And we have some, I think, duty in trying to provide that. So even if we don't want children of our own, even if we can't have children of our own, we'd like to leave the world better than the way we found it. Otherwise, we're going to be called boomers, and we're going to have to deal with that. Thank you for that, HBR News 465 Legacy. So Meredith G gives us $5 and says, HBR News number 466, Honey for the Badger. The British government has gotten so out of touch that their policies are actually having Irish and English who have fought for centuries siding with each other. Well, you love to see it, I guess. Is there still like animosity between the English and the Irish?
Well, yeah, of course. Ever since the division of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, it doesn't make sense that there's a small part of Northern Ireland that wants to be British and the rest doesn't. Because Britain and Ireland were the same country for many centuries, but it was because the English king defeated the Irish king, so there was always a little bit of animosity. But then at some point, the British went, can we try that again, but less violently this time? Can we see if we can make both of these British Isles the same country? And a few people in this northeastern section went, yeah, and everyone else went no. So obviously in this northeastern section of Ireland, there's always been people going yeah and people going no, and they could never agree on anything until the last week or so, when they were like, okay, no more infighting. And I agree, and it has so many parallels with us in this space leper section of the internet, that's sometimes called right wing, or it's just sometimes called the resistance against the left wing. And we're out here having arguments about liberalism has failed. No, liberalism is the good way. It's arguing about exactly what the fuck liberalism means. And you got people falling out about, you're too mean to women. No, I think I'm just the right amount mean to women, and you're not mean enough to women. And it's, fuck it, people.
Can we just be a little bit meaner to women? Just a little bit. Can we?
Start being mean to women in the first place. I'm sorry, but accountability isn't mean. It is a tool for success. So giving women accountability, even if you're grouchy about it, isn't mean. It's just not.
Yeah, no, I
it's like saying mean. Teaching your kids math is mean.
I was being sarcastic. Sarcastic.
I know.
But there are so many so-called conservatives or tradcons or red pillars who are falling out over the smallest things. Meanwhile, these people fucking hate us and they want us dead. Remember what I said about who I mean when I said they want us dead? The fucking commies who run our governments and our media. They want us dead. And we're here squabbling about
it's time to focus, guys. It's time to focus, right? So, and what are the Scots doing in while all this is going on? Are they involved with the Irish English squabbles? or the Scots got their own. They got their own problems.
They're making misogyny illegal.
Yeah, well,
That should tell you
all the
something.
countries are doing that. All of those countries are doing that.
Yeah,
It's-
Scotland is like our California. They're sort of
God.
even more woke than the rest of us, and they want to leave. And we're like, yeah, try it, bro.
Okay. Anyway, so thank you for that, Meredith. And then we got one more super chow from Michael Emmerich Winberg for $10, and he says, Miss Wallen touches one thing that has been said in the past. America is not the world's gutter. This is true, and when it comes to world overpopulation, it becomes even more true. Countries with larger populations than they know or care what to do with them simply don't care, as they can just offload their excess citizens to countries with reducing populations and then tell them to reduce their own population further. This is not to call the people coming scum, but the leaders of their countries do see them as scum and dispose of them as they see fit. Thank you, Michael Emmerich Winberg.
Just want to let everybody know I got consent before I touched it.
Yeah. And then I got a super chat from Albert Nader Retro, who gives us $2 Canadian, says, listen, it's simple. Catch up, women most affected. All right. So let us know what you guys think about that in the comments, and we're going to move on to the next story. Yeah, we did it, Joe.
Why is it that when she talks, Kamala Harris sounds like a bad parody of herself?
She is a parody of herself.
Because she has handlers, she has advisors, and all they tell her is, Kamala, you're a fucking idiot. Just smile and laugh. That's all you can do.
You don't even have to tell her to do that. You can just say anything to her, and she will immediately smile and laugh. It's like her default setting is a cackle. Albert Nader Retro gives us $5 Canadian and says, the Scots are drinking and watching The Critical Drinker. All right, thank you for that. Let us move on to the next story.
I want to hear Kamala Harris say,
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
I would have thought that was more of a Hillary Clinton thing, but there was an East
but she
and
cackles
West witch.
so much.
So she does.
Yeah, the East
I
Witch
don't feel
kind of
no
died.
ways tired.
The East Witch did kind of die.
Yeah. All right, let's go into the next one. I think this might be a little bit of a good story. So, a California father, Harrison Tinsley, has been granted full custody of his 4-year-old son, Sawyer, after a lengthy court battle where Sawyer's mother attempted to raise him as non-binary. Tinsley argued that Sawyer identifies as a boy and becomes upset when addressed otherwise. Sawyer's mother, who identifies as a lesbian and non-binary, wow, you married her? Okay, well, I'm sorry, reportedly tried to impose her gender ideology on Sawyer, including calling him they and making him wear dresses and girly clothing. Tinsley expressed a surprise at winning full custody in California, a state known for its support of LGBTQ plus rights, put that in quotes. He hopes to protect more children from similar situations in the future. So a guy actually won custody, and I want to point out, I don't know what the data is, maybe somebody does, but I have noticed that whenever there is a family or a custody dispute over a child and there is an LGBT position involved, it's usually the mother that's like, oh, my son is or my daughter is the other sex, and I have to save him, and I have to transition him, and I have to put him through the paces, and the father is always fighting not to let this happen. I don't know what the data is, but it does seem like women tend to do this to their kids, but maybe I'm wrong. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
This is the thing that I've said about this before, and I'm going to say about it every single time. Ladies, you need to learn one very specific thing. Your children are not accessories. They are not your purse puppies. They are human beings, individual, living human organisms, just like you are. They're still in their development, but that doesn't make them part of you. They were never part of you. Even when you carried them in your womb, they were still individuals, genetically distinct from you because they have their father's DNA. Right? They have minds of their own. They have wills of their own. They have interests of their own. And they have rights of their own. Gaslighting them into following your woke ideology is abuse. It doesn't matter if you think you're right about it. It's still abuse. If your child is getting upset, if your child seems traumatized by your efforts at imposing your woke ideology, it is because you are a child abuser. You're not giving the kid a gift. You're not making yourself look good. You're not gaining woke points in your community. You are exhibiting symptoms of Munchausen's by proxy. You are trying to make your child sick so that you can look good. And you don't. Get over it. Quit it. Let your children be children while they are young. And stop interfering with their relationships with their fathers.
Stop trying to make them gay.
And letting children be children, unfortunately, means letting them realize that girls and boys are different. And you don't have to force a child or even coerce a child to see differences between girls and boys. They understand it better than adults do. Honestly, you don't need the sexual element for boys and girls to realize that they're different from each other. They would rather play with their own sex than not that they can't get along, but they realize immediately that girls and boys are different because it's obvious. It's even obvious to a child. It takes an intellectual to selectively forget that girls and boys are different, that they have different psychology, not to mention biology, which we'll get into in the last story. The very idea of raising someone as non-binary is like, what does that mean? How do you raise a child as non-binary? Like whenever they mention boys or girls, you give them a quick tst, you twist a bit of their neck skin and go, no. That's not a thing. You're not allowed to recognize that we are a species that has two different sexes. No, we're bacteria. We're single-celled organisms, and if you try to raise your children with any awareness that we are eukaryotic organisms that have two different types, and that's how we're able to escape the barrier of incest. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's fucking non-binary is made up. You can't. I mean, you can, but don't call it science. Don't tell us we're amoebas and call it science. You're lying.
Yeah,
You're fucking liars and quacks, and you're trying to do sadistic experiments on children. I don't know why anyone has any patience left with you. You should all be in prison. Bollocks to you.
There you go. It's all crap. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I'm glad that he got custody. Maybe this is like, maybe people are finally like done with this shit, and fathers are able to protect their children from crazy narcissistic mothers. Like I'm waiting for, honestly, and I really don't want this to happen, but I feel like it's going to. The whole like Jazz Jennings thing. If Jazz Jennings ends up taking their own life after everything that's happened, it's going to be like a reckoning. And this is already happening everywhere else. There's all kinds of detransitioners, and they're all like my mom made me do this, or I insisted on this. I just saw a thing today that there was like a woman talking about how she felt as though her biological girl that she gave birth to, who insisted she was a man and demanded that her breast be cut off when she was like 17 or something, which I guess is under the age in whatever the state is to have, you know, essentially surgery that butchers you to make you appear some facsimile of the opposite sex. And the daughter was crying and swearing at her mom to get this done. And the mom said, I now realize that when I gave birth to my daughter, I put her in a prison, which is the body she was born with. And this is what the transgender ideology does. It makes people feel as though the body they are born in is not theirs. It is a prison imposed on them by their parents. And it's very, very destructive. And I think that in most cases, it's not a legitimate like solution to the problem. And I think this is a very there could be a number of factors for this, but I do think that this is extremely harmful to support without any like critical analysis of how legitimate it is, because young people, they just don't know. They want to fit in, they want to feel normal, they see it as a trend in many cases, and they just follow the trend, and they don't know the amount of harm they're doing to themselves. And if you think about it, if you don't have any happiness with the body that you were given when you were born, then there's nothing that can satisfy that. Like, that is truly damaging. And I think that it's like, well, I don't want to get into it, but there's like, you could say that there's something very transhumanist about it and Gnostic about it, whatever. I mean, look at the Wachowski brothers. They were two men when they made those movies, and now they're both women, or at least they think they are. I just don't, I'm sorry, but I'm not on team let's do whatever you want, especially with kids. I'm just not on that team. I don't think the science is in. I think it's being used to destroy people, and I think it will, and I think there's going to be a lot more coming. So, but anyway, and that's not even going into things like non-binary and pan and all that. That's really, really made up. But anyway, let's move on to the next story. I did get a super chat from Albert Nader Retro, who says, for $5 Canadian, my question is, how can you both be non-binary and a lesbian? That seems like a contradiction to me. See, but that's the thing. Like, it's all about like, how unique are you? That's all it is. It's like, this is how special I am. I have all of these identities. And I have a clip that I want to show. I may have shown it on the show before, but I think it's really important for the next story, which is about more so about the trans thing, but specifically where it comes from, because this is like not men's rights activists. It's not, I don't think it's very high on the list of men's issues, the trans thing, especially trans women being in women's sports, not really high on the list. I think that there's like other things that generally take way higher priority than that. But we will get into it, because I know that J.K. Rowling just likes to blame. But what were you going to say, Mike?
You could believe that only women should exist, right? That the old men should be not just killed, but somehow genetically prevented from happening. And you could believe all that and be a lesbian. that's. I mean, I say that's how non-binary could manifest itself. And as I say that, I'm like, that's how non-binary is manifesting itself. It was created by feminists. Yes. Feminists who want a world with nothing but women. And yes, that is non-binary. So, yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
All right. Well, anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I'm going to move on to the next story. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super childs or anything. No, it looks like we're good. And Rumble is clear. I am watching Rumble, so if you send through a Rumble rant, I will see it. Okay, so let us move on to the last story. The International Olympic Committee is facing backlash from prominent, feminist advocates following the abandonment of a boxing match due to safety concerns. Italy's Angela Carini withdrew from her Paris 2024 bout with Algeria's Imane, I hope I'm not butchering that, Imane or Imani Khalif, who was previously disqualified from the Women's World Championships for her elevated testosterone levels. Carini stated that she prioritized her safety over the competition. The incident has gone viral on social media, but that's not really the story, because we could get into like with the technicality of that stuff, but the story really is J.K. Rowling's reaction. Rowling accused Khalif of being male, a claim denied by the Algeria Olympic Committee. Rowling tweeted that Khalif's participation exemplifies the protection of males by a misogynist sporting establishment at the expense of female athletes. And here I have the tweet on the screen where J.K. Rowling, yes, the writer of Harry Potter, said, "Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life ambition he's just shattered."
So I am going to get into the details of this a little bit, because this is a feminine woman castigating a non-feminine woman who is from a country where it's illegal to be trans, who has female on her birth certificate and all of her identifying materials, including her passport. So this isn't a trans woman. This isn't somebody who was born with male anatomy and then decided, because of gender dysphoria or for any other reason, to transition. This is a person who was born with female anatomy. Feminists have been screaming from the rooftops for months, and in fact years, that the reason that trans women should not be allowed in women's bathrooms, for instance, is the difference in anatomy. Specifically, that trans women cannot be women because of the difference in anatomy. Now the goalpost has been moved to a genetic condition that can cause a woman to have some masculine characteristics. One that is not very well understood by any of the people discussing it and speculating and drawing conclusions and making proclamations about this woman's sex. And here she did use that behavior to demonize men as abusive. She clearly doesn't understand sportsmanship. Somebody patting a fellow athlete on the back and trying to comfort their fellow athlete because the athlete was crying. And I've seen that in numerous athletic events, especially between women, because men don't usually cry when they lose. But they will pat each other on the back and even compliment each other's performance. Women will cry when their hearts are broken, and other women that they've competed with will shake their hand, pat them on the back, and sometimes I've even seen them hug them. And that's sportsmanship. That is dealing with the situation of having completely beaten somebody at your sport by remembering that they're human, that your competition was in good faith, and that you're not enemies. I don't know that Rowling could understand that. I don't think she has it in her. I don't think she's got that kind of personality. I used to really look up to her as a writer years ago, because the whole idea that she came out of poverty, she sat in a coffee shop and wrote these great novels, and they were intensely popular and got a lot of kids to read that never were interested in reading before and all that. I thought, well, that's a great thing to do. Now, she's ruined all of that with shit like this. And to blame men for conflict between women is pathetic. She might have her objections to various aspects of people trying to find their footing around trans issues. But this is not a trans issue. This is not a trans woman. This is not somebody who lied about being female. This isn't somebody who has had gender dysphoria and experiences being female and decided to use surgery to make it happen. This isn't somebody who even has hidden genitalia that's been detected. This is somebody who has a chromosomal abnormality that she wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not a man, but still men get blamed. And at no point has it been a men's issue to say that this kind of thing should happen, where what she's describing, which isn't what actually happened, should be done.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just gross, if you ask me.
Oh, for sure. I think J.K. Rowling she's kind of like on a crusade. And so the crusade is against the kind of trans trenders and the people who are, in her eyes, erasing women and putting women in danger by putting them, biological men in women's sports, biological men in women's...
Her crusade is against men.
It
And
is.
Yes, it is against men.
It always was. It always was. Right. But that's
Yeah,
my
because
point,
they
is that
don't say this
she's...
equally about trans men either.
No, they never do. But she is... What I'm saying is that she's finding dragons wherever she looks. And so in this particular case, it appears that she is wrong because this is not a man. Not only because she misidentifies the problem, because she's looking for dragons to slay, because she sees it everywhere, and probably because she gets a lot of pushback from trans activists. And so that puts her in the wrong there. But where she's really wrong is in trying to say that this is a men's rights thing. And I think that one of the reasons why she does this is because it is easy. Like, if she just says this is men's rights activists, or this is men doing this, or whatever, it will actually work on most of the people who watch her, because most people don't know what men's rights activists are actually about. And that's why I have to say, like, the trans men in women's sports is low on the list. Actual biological women that have like a, maybe they have, I guess she has like high levels of testosterone, like above the average. That's not even like at all in the same ballpark. It's like
there's some
but she wants to blame it.
There's some dispute over the details of that. The dispute being that some people believe and other people do not believe that it's proved that she has an active XY.
According to this,
DNA
she was
profile.
disqualified from Women's World Championship. So not the Olympic Committee, but
Right.
the Women's World Championship, because her testosterone levels were way above like the upper limit of that. So I don't know if that's because of something genetic or because she was juicing or whatever, but I mean, I think Karen said that she had like testicles that were not descended. So there could be some
but Karen doesn't have confirmation of that. That's something that we need to make. So this is the reason that I initially got mad about this, because I've seen a lot of people make a lot of speculation regarding what is or is not true about this individual with no solid evidence. All right. There's two organizations here that are in opposition to each other on the subject. They're two regulatory organizations. Both of them are corrupt and both of them have agendas. And both of them, there are issues with both of them. One of them broke ties with the other over the other's financial corruption and several other things, including the fact that the leadership, the president of the International Boxing Association, is apparently a criminal thug from Russia. Like, and people latched onto the whole Russia thing, like, oh, it's the Russian conspiracy thing. No, the criminal thug part's pretty important, actually. That's a problem. And if it suddenly becomes not a problem because the thing the guy said suits your agenda, then you have a problem, right? So the only thing that we can, with 100% certainty, say about this is that the best information we have is that this is the allegation is that she's got a genetic abnormality. But we also know that she's from a country where her government would not allow her to put the opposite sex as her sex on her identifying paperwork opposite of what her anatomy says that she is. So the only thing that is true in the situation, as far as we know, is that this is a woman with a genetic abnormality that creates some masculine qualities. We don't know how much of her masculine qualities are caused by that genetic abnormality. And we don't know how much of her athletic prowess is caused by that genetic abnormality. Like, that's the weeds that everybody else is getting into of having a Y chromosome makes this person a man. There must be testicles. We don't know that. So we are actually to the point now of speculating about the genitalia, the anatomy of a stranger, for politics, which, like I said, I think that's pretty gross. And it's not just that it's distasteful, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. So
I was just explaining like where I think she's coming from with J.K. Rowling. But my point is that there is actually two let's say factions at war here, and it's not about this specific individual, because yes, there are two regulatory institutions. They have different ideas. You have the Olympics and you have like the world championship, and they have like different, like, you know, whatever, their own measuring tools for gauging out like what, like whether or not this woman qualifies to fight. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. I think that ultimately what this is still a fight between two factions of feminism: intersectional feminism and second wave feminism. And J.K. Rowling is part of second wave feminism, which basically says that, you know, men and women, well, men are the enemy no matter what they look like. So like they can't get out of that at that position as the enemy of women. That's why when she sees what she perceives as biological men in women's spaces, she thinks that this is a problem. But intersectionals are actually the people she's up against, not men's rights activists. And of course, she is saying in this tweet, could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? But that couldn't be further from the truth. And to show that, I have this clip of Judith Butler. So apparently J.K. Rowling is friends with Julie Bindel, who is very, you know, well-known second wave feminist. I don't like to say TERF because they're second wave. They're just feminists. They hate men. It's got nothing to do with like trans identity. It's about men at the end of the day. But Julie Bindel is the Judith Butler rather is the intersectional. So this is a 2-minute clip of her explaining, right, like why gender in her mind is she's more on the side of the queer theorists. And the so they're very important because this person Butler is one of the greats. She's basically right up there with Julie Bindel. They're just on opposite sides of this thing. So
the way in which feminism began was by calling into question received notions of what a woman is, right? They tell you you belong in the household. They tell you you're good for reproduction. They tell you you're not able to do that kind of work. You can't engage in sports. You can't be a public speaker. You certainly can't be a politician. You can't be an intellectual, or if you are, you're never going to be quite as good. So what has feminism been about? It's been about contesting received ideas of what a woman is. Why did we start women's studies, feminist studies, gender studies? Well, we did because we wanted to call into question these presuppositions that had been taken for granted for too long. So we asked the question, what is it to be a woman? Or what does it mean to be a woman? Simone de Beauvoir, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Really? It's not the biological function that makes you a woman? No, it's not the biological function. It's actually nothing specific about the biology that alone defines you as a woman. It's part of the picture. But how you live that, what you do with that, is a question of history. It's a question of freedom. It's how you negotiate your situation, which is an historically complicated one, where there are established norms and roles. So feminism has always kept the question open, what is a woman? And refused to answer it. Refused to answer it on principle, because we don't know all the things women can be and do, and we're not about to say in advance, this is who you are. Stay within your limits. Stay within this category. We've decided this is what a woman is, and you have to live there. It's like, no, we don't do that. We're a freedom struggle.
So that's the truth. I mean, that's what the intersectionals believe. And to be frank, I think that the second waivers, like J.K. Rowling, would agree with a lot of this too, because they don't want, this is like the thing that you do to piss women off, or at least feminist women, is to pretend to understand them. It's the one thing that they hate.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will point this out. All right. One thing this has accomplished, one thing this has done, it has gotten radical feminists and intersectional feminists speaking the same language. It has gotten gynocentrists and conservatives speaking the same language as radical feminists and intersectional feminists. It's gotten all of the people who argue that trans women can't use women's restrooms because your anatomy defines your sex. All of the people who highlight social justice warrior posts where they repeat over and over again, some men have a vagina, some men have a vagina, some men have a vagina on their social media posts, right? And say, these people are crazy for saying that. It's gotten all those same people to say, based on their argument, that someone with female anatomy can be male because of a chromosomal disorder, that some men have a vagina.
Mm-hmm.
They have.
I believe it.
That's basically the argument that is being made here.
Yep. So anyway, at the end of the day, my point is that this was a problem created by women, supported by women, and now women are dealing with it. And please stop bringing men into this, because it has nothing to do with us. Even the men, and this particular instance is not an example of that, because I'm pretty sure that is in fact a woman, but we'll see. I don't know. But like, that's a whole other thing. They got to figure that out on their own. Again, not to do with me as a man or as an MRA, because that's not my wheelhouse. I think that the trans discussion is a larger one that sort of like is bigger than, the sex of the people that are struggling with this crisis, and that we should not treat it trivially or like some kind of status or fashion accessory, but it's something that we should treat very seriously, because I think that there will be a lot of self-deletions coming up if we don't take it seriously. And feminists are playing with people's lives when they engage in their discourse around this. So, and yeah, it's a them problem. Women, you guys, sorry, but when this shit was going on, a lot of women were like totally like, oh yeah, like, anybody should be able to identify as anything. I like that. I'm on Tumblr. I wrote all the buzzwords down. Well, now you have to, now the chickens have come home to roost, and you're all gonna have to deal with it, and it's got nothing to do with us dudes. Sorry, it's nothing to do with us, okay? So stop trying to drag us into your problem and fix it. All right, so anyway, I got some super chats, Rumble rants, and then we're going to go into the patron show. So Michael Emmerich Winberg gives us $15. Thank you, Michael Emmerich Winberg, and says, I waited for today live for this reason. It may be a bit longer, but please bear with me on this. In my country, there were some anti-bigotry billboards with the start of some supposedly bigoted message with the right ending. One of them said, "A woman's place is," followed by "wherever she wants." That raised the question amongst all the other ones that highlight how we are raising girls to never become women. What happens when two women want the same place? Well, now we have the answer. We squabble over which one we call a man. This boxer ran into the female version of Andre the Giant, a woman with a genetic deficiency or something that's a little bit different that made her very efficient at her sport, and the result was obvious. So she cried, and the entire world stopped in such a way that the only thing that made us move away from it were 3 girls dying, which is the referring to the stabbings. This has also completely put the last nail in my coffin for women's sports. Ultimately, the entire thing is becoming useless because, as we can see, our barometer for success for the sport and its results ends up becoming, guess what? A woman's tears. And because a woman is crying, there must be a culprit, and the culprit must be a man. Yep, that is right. And that's just it. Like, we can't just be like, "I'm sorry, but suck it up, Buttercup. This woman beat you." That's just the way it goes. So, yeah. Thank you for that, Michael Emmerich Winberg. Then I got a Rumble rant from OIC for, is that a 1? I think that's $1. Thank you, OIC. And he says, "I think it's possible that this is just a really manly looking woman. I suspect a sport like boxing would filter for the most masculine women amongst those most performant athletes." Yes, I think that is true. And then I got another one
and
from...
she doesn't even win all of her fights. Like, she won this one, the one
Yeah.
that we were talking about. But God, I can't think of her name. The Irish woman beat her in a previous event.
Oh.
So yeah, well,
When
maybe it's because she's Irish, but
yeah, that's right.
you know, this isn't.
She learned from the
People talk
toughest
about
leprechaun in the wood
in the woods. Yeah,
at the end of the rainbow.
people talk about this like there's some division. All women will be beaten by this person because she has some masculine characteristics. It's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's not like she's had a perfect run. She's not Mike Tyson. But there you go. So, and then
No,
OIC
and
gives us...
she would definitely lose against Mike Tyson.
Definitely. And then OIC gave us $1 again. Thank you, OIC, and says, "In before the manly looking woman gets pregnant in a few months and shows off the pregnant belly." You know what? I'm sure there's a dude that is willing to tame that.
Yeah.
that's like there's like some dude watching and he's like, would. So thank you for that. I think there's a super chat still. Just make sure I'm not missing any. Yeah, Albernator Retro gave us $10 Canadian. Thank you, Albert, and says, "Can we send Karen after JK for that MRA content? How do feminists feel about cis women using men's rooms because the lines are too long and slow to the women's room?" Well, feminists don't care.
I don't
they
know
probably
about sending Karen after J.K. Rowling on this topic. It's not gonna go the way that you think.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it anyways. And Karen doesn't fight people online like she used to. So sorry, but your dream matchups may not happen anymore. She's kind of like slowed down, and I'm okay with that. We should all slow down.
Oh, she's arguing with me on on X right now.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Maybe it's just a sparring thing. Maybe she's just sparring with you.
No.
All right. Well, we gotta end the show here, so we're gonna head into the patron show now, and we're gonna be just kind of hanging out, looking at this article from The Guardian. Deadpool's obnoxious gay panic humor is a tiresome schoolyard taunt by Guy Lodge, who apparently is, as most people at The Guardian, allergic to fun. So we'll see what he has to say in the patron show. And if you want to join us on the patron show, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all of the additional content, such as our patron shows, as well as lots of other sort of like, event. I think there's a game night tonight because they usually do them on Tuesdays. So yeah, please be sure to check that out. And with all that said, I guess we're gonna end the show here. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will see you next Tuesday. I'm gonna really try to get that one in because it is Tuesday. And talk to you guys later.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.